All right, so the next step is for us to edit our information from our customers when we click on the submit button. And if we look at the code that we have done in the past, we simply have a submit button. We currently have it being submitted as a GET request, but we're going to change that. This was just for convenience of our work in progress. So let's do this. I'm going to go back into my terminal and I'm going to check to see what it is I need to do in order to do a submit. I'm going to look at my routes and I'm going to want to run my update function. This is where I want to go because obviously I want to update whatever changes were posted. And so let's see what it says. So I'm going to need in my route, I'm going to need to have the customers and also an ID. So I'm going to need customer ID. But notice that we have something different than what we've used before, and that is this is a put request. And so really a post request and a put request for all intensive purposes, as far as we're concerned, are almost the same. Under the hood, they're a little bit different, but as far as we're concerned, it's not that important. But what a put does is it's used for updates generally. So by standards, post and put are both used for new requests, and a put is generally something that's used for an update. In other words, we're updating our customer, and so by standards, and again, under the hood, it's a little bit different, but as far as we're concerned, we're going to use the put. All right, so we're going to then, and like I said, the only reason why I'm using the put is because that's what was set up automatically for us when we used that resources flag when we created the controller. So now that we have to do a couple of things. We're going to change up our form open here a little bit. Before we just used a simple URL, and that was fine. Here's where I can change. Let's change get to put. Start off with there. And now I'm going to have to do a little bit something different here because I'm not just requesting a simple customer URL. Now I also want to append on the customer ID. And so what we're going to do is we need to send that as an array. And let me copy and paste in what we need here. So let me just copy and paste in some code so I'm not fat fingering. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to send in the action as an array, and what we need to do in our array is we need to call our controller, so that's the first argument, and then or the first, not argument, the action is our first element in our array. And that action is going to, and then our second element in the array is the method. And then as the action, we're sending an array. And the first element in that array is our controller, which is customer controller. And then we're calling the update function. And then the second argument is the second item in our array, terminology, is our customer ID. And we got that from when we loaded the page. So just like we have customer first name, etc., we are saying, okay, when the user clicks on the button, they're going to send a post request. That post request is going to call the customer's controller. It's going to run the update function. And at that point, we're also sending over the ID. So then if we look at our customer's controller, and we go to the update function, which was created for us on our behalf, which is here. That function is expecting to receive a request. So all of the data that got posted is going to go into the request global variable. And then we're also sending over the ID. So that's where that all gets wired up together. And so now we simply have to do let's see what happens. Let's just to be sure what we're doing, I'm going to do a return request and see how that works. And so if this is all wired up correctly, I should get this customer back. So let's see what happens. I didn't refresh, so I'm going to have to refresh. And so if I use Joe and I hit submit, I did get Joe's raw data back. So that seems good. Okay, so I'm going to comment that out. Now I just need to find that customer. Again, I'm just going to copy in some code for you. So I know that the request is working. So now what I need to do is I need to find that customer, just like we've done in prior scenarios. Based on that ID, I get a customer back. And now just for simplicity, all I've done right now is update the first name. So to do that, there's our record set. There's our customer. So in our customer, let's get to that first name field. We're going to use the request input. And then this is coming over from the name that was input on the form, right? So if I look at my page source and I look at that form was first name. So that's what we gave it several examples before. So that's what we're getting here. We're getting the request object, which is the data that was sent from this form. And we're getting the name. I need that input field of the name and put that into the database first name field. And then we could do more of those. So if I want to copy this scenario and do the same thing for last name, that would just continue on the example. Last name, and then this was also last name. And then I can save that. So let's see what happens when I run that. Let me refresh this just to make sure that I've got the most current information. So I'm going to change Joe to Joey and then click submit, and let's see what happens now. Okay, now I'm getting an error. So what's happening here is that Eloquent, again, just like it expects our customers, our customer model to have a customers table. We experienced that a little bit earlier. At the same time, it's expecting our database to have a updated at field, which is a timestamp. And so it's not finding that. And so our SQL statement is failing. And so what we're going to have to do to override that is we're going to go into our model, which is, I'm on the wrong page. We're going to go into our model, which is here, customers, and we're going to have to override. So in other words, and this is just out of the Eloquent documentation, just like this, we had to provide the primary key. Here we're going to have to say, we don't have timestamps on our database. So where you are assuming we're creating timestamps, we're not. So now when we rerun this, hopefully without having to refresh, we didn't supply a view, did we? So let's supply a view. So back in here, so assumably the database saved, but now we're going to want to, and let's just do this. Want to see if I have to put this on pause because I don't have my local host up. Maybe I do, so you can see it. Let's see if I can show you that Joey turned to Joey. Let's see what happens. So here's my database, and I'm going to hit refresh, and let's see if Joe turned to Joey. So it did. So we know our SQL statement ran, so we're successful there. So now the next problem is we're going to have to display a new page. All right, that sounds fair. So the first thing I'm going to do is try this. I want to go back to the customers page. So I'm going to attempt to do this. So after you save the data, I want to go back and see the customers page. So let's see what happens if we do that. So, I got an error. Why? Customers is undefined. Because remember, in order to get to the customer page, we need to supply it with some customers. So we had to do, let's see where we had to do something like this, right? Show all, and then we had to get all the customers so that the page knew what customers to display. So what we can do then is, instead of doing it this way, I'll just redirect. Let me just copy and paste. I'm just going to redirect the route to the customers, so it'll now be routed to the /customers, which, if you remember from our routing, is then going to show the index page, the index function, which was up here. So it's going to show the index function, and now all of this part will run. So if we do that, then we're seeing our page. Oh, what happened to Joey here? So we should have seen Joey change Joey didn't change. Let's see what happens now. There we go. Now Joey changed. So I just didn't refresh this. So now that's working. Let's do the last name. Joey changed. Let's change his last name. Let's change him back to Joey, and we'll make him Joey Johnson instead, or Joe Johnson, just to make sure that that's all working. And now we have Joey and we have Joey Johnson. So that part's all working. So now we've got our edit feature working. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a new customer.